Hello everybody, this is Hollow Audio tuning in again for another Podfic recorded by yours truly. Today we'll be reading The First Choice by myself off of AO3. This is a Harry Potter fanfiction. It is rated general audiences. No archive warnings apply. The fandom is Harry Potter. Characters are Harry Potter, Voldemort, Tom Riddle, Draco Malfoy, Narcissa Malfoy, and Nagini. Additional tags: Harry is tired. Let's make a deal with the devil. Harry Potter is a secret Slytherin. Secret Slytherin Harry Potter. Sane Voldemort Harry Potter. No beta. Harry Potter needs a hug. Nagini is the real hero here, let's be real. And sassy Harry Potter. Summary. Harry didn't want to fight, but the choice had been made for him, as had almost every choice since the moment the Dark Lord darkened his family's door when he was a baby. One way or another, Harry knew he would be dead by the end of the war, so when a Death Eater drops him off before Voldemort, Harry decides not to fight it. Either he'd be dead within the next hour, or he wouldn't. This was, after all, how the game was always meant to end, right? There are a lot of places Harry expected to find himself the summer after his 5th year at Hogwarts, and being surrounded by Death Eaters standing before Voldemort himself had not been one of them. Well, actually it had, but Harry had considered it a much lower possibility, and what did that say about his luck? All he wanted was a moment to himself, a quick walkabout to clear his head. Dumbledore had made it quite clear he had the Order stationed around his neighborhood, and while he promised to refrain from leaving the property as much as possible, Harry could only take so much of the Dursleys before he felt his magic gearing up to set them on fire. So he'd taken a lap around the neighborhood. He'd taken a moment in the park to wonder how his life had ended up so messed up, and the next thing he knew, there was a crack of an apparition, a hand gripping his arm, and suddenly he was before the Dark Lord himself. He really shouldn't have been surprised by this. He shot a quick glare at the large white serpent coiled up at the feet of Voldemort, the same snake who had kept him company while he had pruned his aunt's garden a week ago. And yes, he knew who Nagini was. Yes, he knew she was Voldemort's familiar. Yes, he probably should have told someone that said snake had found him, and by default the Dark Lord had found him. But Harry was tired. Quite frankly, he couldn't bring himself to care anymore, which seemed to set every Death Eater on edge since this so-called savior of the light wasn't reacting in fear of his situation, but in clear, frustrated exasperation. Harry glanced up at Voldemort, who hadn't said anything yet, but was watching him with a curious gleam in his eye. With another sigh, Harry decided to fuck it and started speaking. "You could have just sent me an invitation. Last I checked, kidnapping is still frowned upon, war times or not." Said statement didn't help the tension in the air, as all the Death Eaters flinched away at the comment and then straight up cowered when their leader began to laugh. "If I had invited you, would you have accepted?" Harry shrugged. "Probably. It's only polite to properly invite me to my murder this time around." Harry took a moment to properly look at the people surrounding him. Most were in their official spooky uniform, but many had some pretty distinct features, and Harry immediately recognized a mop of silver-white hair that belonged to the git he'd been probably a little too obsessed over, to be honest. Draco was there, and by the look of it, he was rightly terrified. So, murder? Harry turned back to Voldemort. "You planning to do it in front of all your followers or on a more public stage?" In hindsight, sassing the Dark Lord probably wasn't the smartest plan, but Harry was either going to die in the next hour or he wasn't. So, what was the point of holding back his sass? Might as well be annoying while he still can. "You seem far too accepting of the fact that you're going to die." And was that concern from the Dark Lord about Harry's very predictable and quite frankly patented lack of self-preservation? How quaint. "Oh, you do care," he hummed in mock cheer, before promptly plopping onto the ground. Nagini had uncoiled herself and was slowly making her way over. Say what you want about her owner, but Nagini was right pleasant and had a great humor about her. "Let's be real here, though, Mr. Dark Lord Voldemort, sir. I've already accepted my death. There's no scenario in which I escape this war alive." "You seem so certain." I may be a Gryffindor, but the hat wanted me in Slytherin for a reason. Neglect tends to lead one to develop certain abilities of observation, and the farce of idiocy tends to lead others to reveal more than they ever intended. I would have to be blind to not realize I'm being raised like a lamb to the slaughter. There was something sharp in Harry's eyes that, again, left the Dark Lord watching him with that gleam of curiosity, and for a moment, the two studied each other in a way that only they really could. A silent conversation passing between the two that resulted in Harry relaxing minutely more than before. Nagini had slid up to him, and Harry ran his hands over her smooth scales like he had done the week before, taking a moment to marvel in the absolute beauty that this serpent was. "Hello, beautiful," he hissed, masking his grin as he watched half the Death Eaters flinch away. It was shocking how they all seemed to forget he was a Parselmouth. "Hatchling," Nagini greeted as she began to climb up and over his shoulders. "This house is so boring, and no one here appreciates me like you do." "That is simply because they do not understand how much of a delight you are to be around. I hope someday I can have a familiar who is half as beautiful and intelligent as you are." There was another flinch from the crowd as Nagini gave the equivalent of a snake's laughter. "I take it you're the one who told them of my location?" "Did you expect me to leave you there?" "Hardly." Another laugh from the Dark Lord's familiar as she finally settled herself over Harry's shoulders. "You expected me to take you?" Voldemort asked, having gleaned some new information from the conversation between his enemy and his familiar. "My life is a series of choices that have been made while I was locked out of the room. If you didn't take me, the Order would have. And if they hadn't, well, who knows? Right now, this is the lesser of two evils, because at the end, the result is I don't have to fight anymore." "You don't want to fight?" Harry let his mask fall and looked up at the Dark Lord with something that could only be described as bone-deep exhaustion. A tiredness that latched into his very soul and refused to let go. 11-year-old Harry had been excited to learn he was a wizard. It was an escape from a family that hated him, from a life that would have led nowhere. He'd felt like he was finally on the road to finding somewhere he belonged, except that wasn't true. He hadn't realized it in the beginning, but the only belonging he had in the wizarding world was as a pawn on a chessboard he didn't control. He arrived in a world with predestined expectations of who he should be, and Harry knew better than to go against the flow. "My entire life has been mapped out for me thanks to you and Dumbledore. I've never had a say in what goes on. If I don't fight, I've no doubt Dumbledore would find a way to make me. And if I do fight, I've no doubt I'll end up dead. I am the rope in a tug of war between two different evils. Much against my choice, mind you. If I had my way, I'd have been a regular student, learning magic and probably learning about my status and role in this world as the last living member of an ancient and noble house, which I only found out about by chance due to some offhanded comment by some Slytherin in my year group. I'd have also probably studied runes. I don't want to be an Auror, despite everyone expecting it of me. I certainly wouldn't have taken divination, but how else was Dumbledore supposed to get me interested enough in a prophecy to storm the Hall of Mysteries?" Harry took a deep breath, having said everything in one go. "Did you know we could talk to dragons? 4th year, during the first task, when the dragon broke away and chased me around the castle, we were actually having a nice chat about her home back in Romania. I don't think I'd mind going to Mazie Zoology. It would probably let me travel the world, which would be nice, but alas, my life was determined for me the moment you decided to self-fulfill a prophecy. And so once again, I find myself with a decision that's not really my decision. Join you and live a life as a servant to a different master, or deny you and be killed. Although, I guess you're a step above the headmaster, since at least you're upfront about your expected servitude instead of manipulating everybody into thinking it's their own choice." Harry kinda wanted to plop down on his back and let Nagini smother him. She was a large and heavy snake, and there was something quite comforting about her weight blanketed over his shoulders. "I refuse to join you," Harry said, his voice firm in his decision. "One of your members murdered the last person who cared for me as just Harry, instead of the boy who lived. And I don't believe in your ideals. Say what you want about muggles, but what they lack in magic they make up for in science, and their research of genetics more than proves that a lack of genetic diversity brought about by your blood purity rhetoric is more likely to bring about the downfall or destabilization of magical Brit. In case you aren't aware, the last person who participated in a mass-scale ethnic cleansing not only lost the war, but was vilified on a global scale. I have enough knowledge and pattern recognition to see where your little campaign is heading towards, and I've no desire to be a part of it. And you wouldn't fight me for, what's the saying? The greater good? Because you should stand up to evil? I'm 16. Why am I expected to fight? Even if I refused, if I fled the country, I've no doubt someone else would step up and take you down. There are enough prominent families with European branches who would petition the ICW to intervene if you were to, wipe out or imprison the entire British branch of the family. How certain are you in your ability to stand up to the military of the greater European continent? Or did you expect them to see the work you did here and simply agree it was the ideal method and fall into line behind you? Oh, and what would you propose we do instead? I don't know. Maybe focus less on purity and more on preservation of the old ways? That's the main point, right? There are rites and rituals known to those born and raised in the magical world that are being forgotten or outlawed due to an influx of muggle-raised witches and wizards, and the government's desire to keep them here by assimilating to their customs as opposed to helping them learn the customs of magic. At the rate they're going, the Statue of Secrecy is going to collapse on itself. Honestly, I think I just let them implode and pick up the pieces afterwards. There's no guarantee that would happen. No, but you could speed it up by removing your assets from the UK. The noble houses are old money, and if that money helps run this country through investments, or so I've been led to believe, why support a country that doesn't support you? Harry shrugged. We've gotten off topic. Are you or are you not going to kill me, Mr. Dark Lord Voldemort, sir? That depends. You said you don't want to fight anymore. I'd like not to, but as I mentioned before, I don't believe I'll be given the choice. And if I gave you the choice? Harry perked up at this. What are you offering? Leave Britain. Take your family name, take your assets, relocate anywhere else. I know for a fact there are Potters in Italy and France who would take you in, seeing as you are legally lord of the family's main branch. I won't ban you from returning to England, but you will stay away until the war is settled. Either your predictions will come true and I will lose, or I will win in the long run and inform you when you are able to return. And how will I know of any happenings here? Voldemort hummed thoughtfully at this. What would you suggest, Potter? Harry looked around again at the Death Eaters and spotted the familiar sheen of silver hair. He remembered the near-constant current of fear behind the mask of a cocky pureblood who held all the cards. Harry didn't want to be a savior, but maybe he could still be someone's hero? With a decisive nod, he turned back to Voldemort. I'd like for Draco Malfoy and Narcissa Malfoy to accompany me. This way, you can monitor that I'm staying true to my word by removing myself from England and this war, but also have a means of communication should you desire to reach out. Not to mention that Lady Malfoy is a Black, and I've been named heir to the Black family in accordance with my godfather, Lord Sirius Black's will. I'd like the opportunity to learn about all the families I will lead. And what would I get in return for sacrificing my numbers in such a way? Due to participating in the Triwizard Tournament, I've legally been declared both of age and emancipated in the eyes of magic and the law. So, should you allow my request, I will shift both the Potter and the Black seats to a proxy of your choosing, or at the very least, into the Grey sect. This will limit the voting power for the Light sect, and make it difficult to pass laws further limiting your rights to practice old magic. You think Dumbledore will allow that? I don't think I'll have a choice. He's no longer my guardian, and my word is that of a lord. He can fight all he wants, but he has no power to change a lord's decision, especially if I provide safeguards. Voldemort pretended to muse over this counteroffer. Harry could already see that he'd agreed, but it would look bad if he accepted too quickly, especially with all of his followers watching, or at least his inner circle. Finally, the Dark Lord nodded. I accept your terms, Potter. Heir Malfoy and Lady Malfoy shall accompany you wherever you choose to reside, so long as it is not within this country. On top of this, knowing your true feelings regarding the war and regarding the nature of those opposing me, Voldemort pulled out his wand and held it up. The top glowed a soft golden color. I swear on my magic, should the terms of our agreement willingly be upheld by both parties, that I will not knowingly or willingly harm Harry James Potter should he appear in front of me in the future during this time of war and civil unrest. With a flash, the swear was accepted by Lady Magic herself. Harry sat there bewildered for a moment because that was not what he was expecting. A minute later, the events finally processed and he fell onto his back, mindful of the serpent still draped across him, and laughed. He laughed loudly and without a care until it eventually morphed into some sad sort of hiccuping sob. He didn't really process when someone, Narcissa, had pulled him into a hug, simply holding him in comfort as he continued to laugh and cry, because Harry finally realized, for the first time since arriving in this world, he was finally free. Even if he left and Dumbledore found some way to drag him back, Voldemort wouldn't raise his wand against him because Harry didn't want to fight, and the Dark Lord had acknowledged this when no one else had. It was like a weight had suddenly disappeared, and Harry, for the first time in his life, was actually excited for what the future may hold because he finally had the chance to choose. All right. Thank you for listening. That was another Podfic by yours truly, Hollow Audio, reading a fic that I myself wrote on my phone like a year ago. Anyways, thank you for being here. I hope you'll have a great day. I hope you'll have a phenomenal whatever's going on whenever you're listening to this. And I will see you when I next see you.